Arthur Smith's offenses are typically built around a run-driven identity that is tightly married to play action. His core philosophy is to establish a physical running game that forces defenses into single high-safety looks, then punish those looks with play-action passes that feature defined quarterback-friendly reads. The clearest example of the ceiling of this approach came during his time with Tennessee in 2019, when the Titans finished first in red zone efficiency, third in rushing offense, 10th in points scored per game. That same season, ESPN highlighted just how devastating the play-action package was. Quarterback Ryan Tannehill completed 76.5% of his passes and averaged 13.6 yards per attempt on play-action throws, the best marks among quarterbacks with at least 75 play-action attempts. Another defining trait of Smith's offenses is heavy personnel usage and consistent involvement of tight ends. Smith comes from a tight end coaching background and has spent significant portions of his career coaching tight end rooms, with early responsibilities that even overlapped with the offensive line in Tennessee. As a result, his offenses frequently feature more 12 personnel grouping, meaning one running back and two tight ends, along with condensed formations that bring receivers closer to the core of the formation. These looks allow for more max protection concepts, deeper play action shots, and the use of tight ends as true matchup weapons rather than simple checkdown options. First year with the Steelers, the offense ranked 11th in rushing at 127 yards per game. This does not necessarily mean an old school approach for its own sake, but it does underline his default offensive sequence: establish the run, build off it with play action, and win games in the red zone. The upside for Justin Herbert in this structure would be fewer pure dropback situations where the entire play hinges on the offensive line holding up in obvious passing down. Another major change would be the installation of a serious, highly structured red zone package. If GM's biggest frustration is red zone failure, Smith's resume from Tennessee is the strongest selling. His 2019 and 2020 red zone touchdown rates were historically high, and that success was not accidental. In practical terms, this would mean more condensed formations near the goal line, more motion into stacked or bunched alignments, more tight end leak concepts, and more calls that look like runs before turning into passes in tight spaces. Smith would also likely feature Oronde Gadsden in the tight end room more prominently. Gadsden already produced 664 receiving yards, and in a Smith offense, the primary tight end often becomes a central piece of the passing game. That role typically includes stressing the seam against cover 2 defenses, serving as a primary crosser off play action, and becoming a first read option in the red zone on option routes, stick routes, and nod routes. With players like Will Dissly and Tyler Conklin, the Chargers could stay in heavy personnel groupings without tipping whether the play is a run or a pass, which is a core element of Smith's disguise philosophy. There would also be more built-in protection help, though it would not be a cure-all. The Chargers allowed significant pressure in 2025, Herbert taking 54 sacks and the team giving up 60 total. Smith can scheme around some of that damage using more max protection, more play action, more quick game concepts, and more snaps the running back or tight end stays into block. However, if the offensive line issues are fundamental, scheme alone cannot fully erase them. The main criticism of Arthur Smith at previous stops, especially in Atlanta, was that a run-first philosophy can drift into run stubbornness. Even in 2021, local analysis of the Falcons' offense argued that they needed to throw more on early downs instead of remaining overly committed to the run. With Herbert, the Chargers' highest ceiling version is not about hiding the quarterback, but about using the run to generate explosive plays while still letting the quarterback win games. If Smith were hired, the real question would be whether he keeps Herbert aggressive on early downs when matchups demand it, treats play action as a weapon rather than a crutch, and builds a modern passing menu for Ladd McConkey, Keenan Allen, and Quentin Johnston. There is also the question of whether this would truly represent a fresh start. Moving from Greg Roman to Arthur Smith still signal a physical run-play action identity. Harbaugh has said he wants a new direction, so Smith would need to demonstrate this is not simply more of the same, but a clear upgrade in red zone design, pass game structure, and weekly game planning. Based on Harbaugh's comments and the context around the offensive changes, that expectation would be central to any decision to bring Smith in. If the Chargers were to hire Arthur Smith, there would be several early indicators that the pairing is working as intended. First, and most importantly, the red zone touchdown rate would jump. That is the entire point of this hire, and Smith's reputation is built on turning possessions inside the 20-yard line into touchdowns rather than field goals. Second, sack totals would come down without Justin Herbert being reduced to a checkdown-only quarterback. The offense should protect him better through structure and design while still allowing him to push the ball downfield. Third, explosive passes off play action would become routine rather than occasional. These shots should feel like a weekly feature of the offense, not something that shows up once every few games. Fourth, tight end usage would clearly become a feature instead of an accessory.